Well, this morning it is a privilege for us on this Human Relations Sunday to have with us Eric Soard. I first met Eric about 4 or 5 years ago in a coffee shop over on West End with Cosby Stone. And Eric was here to say thanks for Calvary's participation in all kinds of missions work in Tanzania. And he also was filling me in on all the important work that was going on at Wesley College. And that work still continues, even though Eric and his family have moved back to the States, and they have moved here so that he can further raise money and continue that partnership so that we can help the people in Tanzania. And so we welcome Eric. We're glad that he's here with us, and we want him to come, and we'll allow you now to share all the things that are going on in Tanzania with Wesley College and United Methodist Church.
Good morning. I want to thank you for this opportunity to get to share with you all this morning, to share some of what's going on at Wesley College and more broadly with the church and the mission in Tanzania. I want you to do a little bit of a thinking exercise to imagine with me. I feel like the 8:15 service did pretty well with this, and that's really early in the morning, so I'll be honest, my expectations are a little bit higher with you all. Now that it's 10:30, and I'm assuming if you're a coffee drinker, you've had your cup of coffee. If you're not a coffee drinker, then I don't know. I apologize. But imagine Calvary United Methodist. Imagine a sanctuary. Think of a Christmas Eve service or an Easter Sunday service. The sanctuary is completely packed. We've got families all over the place, and the church is full of people. One of those special Sundays. And now imagine if fully 50% of the space, Sunday school classes, the sanctuary, wherever you go, you see children, youth, and young adults. Now, we're not getting rid of anybody. We're going to squeeze a little bit. We're going to make a little bit of extra room. And imagine if all of a sudden half of your space was taken up with children, youth, and young adults. How would that affect the way that you do ministry? How would that affect the type of programs you offer, the type of ministry and discipleship opportunities you offer, the way that you start to allocate your resources if half of your congregation were college age or below? And I ask that because that's the reality in Tanzania. Tanzania is the largest country in East Africa from both a landmass standpoint as well as a population standpoint. They have a little over 60 million people in Tanzania. They just completed a census last year. And 50% of the population is under the age of 25. 50%. They have the 10th youngest population of any country in the world. 70% of the population is under the age of 35, which puts me in a new position of being in the top 30% age-wise. I'll let you figure out where it puts you. But imagine what that looks like. And now we have this opportunity as a church in Tanzania to say that we get this chance to offer a formational educational experience. Tanzania right now is going through amazing growth, not just in the number of people, but also in the way in which it's developing and taking leaps and bounds forward compared to where it used to be. It's growing economically, it's growing technologically, it's growing in the number of opportunities that it has. Over the last 10 to 15 years, the number of primary school students have grown 100%. The number of high school students has grown almost 40%. It is just exploding with opportunity. But they still face a lot of challenges. There's still a 70% poverty rate. We still have a young adult and adult population where less than 5% of the people have any kind of college education, vocational, technical college, university, less than 5% of the population. And so while we have 1 million youth entering the job market every year, 1 million youth coming of age every single year, there are only about 100,000 available jobs. There are a lot of opportunities growing as Tanzania shifts and expands and moves, but there's also a lot of challenges. We've got a young population that is starting to leave rural areas and move into cities that are starting to have to navigate and figure out this global world that we live in. Tanzania is not any different in many ways than the U.S. We have, out of 60 million people, we have 15 million smartphone users, which means we've got a lot of young adults that all of a sudden have access to the entire world sitting in their pocket for the first time ever, trying to figure out what they do with that. But they also have a lot of challenges in front of them. A pastor friend of mine who pastors a small church in a rural area once told me, poverty is making the best, worst choice. And that's a little bit of a phrase to chew on. Poverty is making the best, worst choice. And a lot of the students that we have at Wesley College who are coming to study one of our various courses are going through life trying to make the best, worst choice. Boniface is one of those students, and if you follow Wesley College and some of the stuff that we put out in the student stories we share, you've heard about Boniface before. He's one of our few international students. Boniface is from Burundi originally, and when he was very young, civil war hit that country. This would have been in the mid-90s, and him and his family had to leave their home. And as they were running away from this conflict, he was separated from his parents. He was captured and became a child soldier, forced to become a child soldier, and had to do that for a little while, and then was able eventually to escape from that and made his way to Tanzania to a refugee camp. At the time, in the mid-90s, Tanzania was home to the largest number of refugees anywhere in the world. And he lived in a refugee camp for a long time, trying to make that best, worst choice. At some point, the Tanzanian government said, we feel like things are stable, you can go back home. He went back home. He found that his family land had been taken over by other people. He still didn't know where his parents were. He didn't have any opportunity back home. He wasn't welcome in Tanzania. He eventually made his way to Kenya to another refugee camp. At this point in time, he's got over a decade in a refugee camp where your daily allotted food is given to you, where everything is provided for you, but it's not enough to flourish. It's just enough to get by. And he had to figure out how to make the best, worst choice in that situation. And Boniface found, for him, that meant finding a way to help others. That's how he dealt with his situation. That's how he found to make a positive contribution and to feel better about the situation that he was in. And so he took some counseling courses that the UN was offering and became a family counselor. And there's a refugee camp in Kenya, and started working with other families and other individuals to help them deal with some of the depression, the anxiety, the anger, the hurt, the trauma that came with their previous experiences, what had brought them to the refugee camp, and then living in the refugee camp, which was also really difficult and challenging. He made the best of the situation that he was in. And that's what he was doing when he finally heard about Wesley College. Our staff stepped up. He had no legal papers, no birth certificate, no passport. They helped him get that. He had never had a formal education or a high school diploma. They helped translate his informal education he had gotten in the refugee camp into formal education. And they were able to get him to Wesley College. And all of a sudden, for the first time in his life, in his early 20s, he had more than just the best, worst chance in front of him. And Boniface will talk about one of the things that he learned at Wesley College. There are two things he talks about. One is he learned that leadership is about serving others. I feel like he kind of already knew that, but that's what he says. And then the other thing he learned is that he is enough. He gained the confidence through his experience in student government, through his classes, through the mentorship of the lecturers and the professors around him, that he had something to share with others. When he graduated after 3 years and went back to the refugee camp, not all of your circumstances change just because you get an education. went back to the refugee camp and was appointed as a pastor in a United Methodist church there in the refugee camp. The largest refugee camp currently in the world, over 1 million refugees there in Kenya. And he looked around and decided that he was going to start preaching and teaching about peace. Just because they left their homes and the source of that conflict doesn't mean they left the conflict behind when they came to the refugee camp. And so he started talking on the radio and preaching to groups and talking to them about peace and spreading peace and creating pockets and groups of peace there in the refugee camp. And he started spreading that light that he had been given to others. In Tanzania, the United Methodist Church has decided to invest their time and energy and resources into forming young leaders. There's a lot of other ministries they do and a lot of other things they do, but one of the ways that they have chosen to invest their time and their resources is into forming young leaders to be able to go back to their communities, their homes, their villages, their churches, and to become leaders for others, to become preachers, community developers, to solve community problems, to figure out how to create the opportunities that they did not have as children, but to be able to make sure that they can give them to somebody else. And in doing that, our graduates and our students have become a light to others, a light to the nation. I'm here sharing today because as amazing our student stories are, they couldn't do it without support and help. They couldn't have received those experiences. They would not have been able to learn and grow and spend time at Wesley College if their needs were not being met. If they did not have scholarships that provided for lodging and food and a space to stay while they were receiving this college education. If they did not have resources to take a pause from their lives of daily survival to give themselves an opportunity to grow. If they were not given that chance, we would not see the leaders coming out of Wesley College that we've seen. And that's possible because of churches like Calvary. That's possible because of the contributions that you all have made to Wesley College and to the mission and church in Tanzania to allow these young adults an opportunity to pause and to grow and to focus on themselves and to develop themselves so that they can then provide those opportunities to others. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for the way in which you support this ministry. Thank you for the way in which you supported myself and my family for the time that we were over in Tanzania. Thank you for supporting the development of young leaders like Boniface. I know that there are children in this church and would-be youth if they weren't out skiing. No offense to the service, but I might have also made that choice. You all are doing that here. But I'm excited to be able to be here this morning and let you know you're also doing it in other parts of the world. Thank you.